The best thing, and I've said this from the beginning, the best thing any defendant can do, at least at the outset, is just keep your mouth shut. Hello, my name is Bruce Rivers, and I'm an expert in criminal law. That means I'm board certified as a criminal trial specialist. Today we're going to be talking about Tay K's case and his song, The Race. And I want to apologize to my followers because we didn't realize that this thing was going to blow up to what it is. I want to assure you that we're going to go forward with more frequent commentary and analysis of some of these cases. Now let's start off by looking at a news report of the initial incident that leads to our analysis of Tay K's case.
Or you will only see here at this hour. A teenager wanted for a murder and a violent robbery back in front of a juvenile court judge today after months on the run. I'm Doug Dunbar.
And I'm Kaylee O'Kelly. Tamor back in.
So they don't connect a person to those actions. And it's not just humanity, there's no empathy.
Richard and Roberta Walker's son, Ethan, was the victim in a Mansfield murder McIntyre is charged with. After he was first arrested last year, a juvenile court judge released him. He cut off an ankle monitor and has since been connected to more crimes, including a violent robbery in Arlington.
It did not surprise me in the least when we got the phone call that these two guys had cut their monitors and were in the wind.
His capture has almost boosted his popularity on social media. Twitter posts from fans now include the hashtag #FreeTayK. There are t-shirts for sale for $35 to $45 with the same slogan. Angry he was ever released, the Walkers say they are confident that now McIntyre will stay locked up. But the online reaction highlights their concern with young criminals even beyond their son's case.
I think lately we've been just going nuts with it. And I think our kids are killing each other and killing themselves. And it's more, it's not just a matter for the justice system.
And McIntyre.
Okay, so whatever support Tay K thinks he's getting by the social media, which is remarkable in any respect, but it has zero impact on his criminal case in terms of a defense. Might be able to raise some money for it. I mean, maybe, I don't know if he's doing that or not, but by putting out a video and talking about it. We talked about this with Melly. It is a form of self-snitching, and it is anything he says in the video can certainly be used against him if he goes to trial. One of the things that happens in a criminal case, when you are charged, you get to court, and then the court determines whether or not to release you, pending charges. And in a lot of federal cases, there's a presumption that you are detained. Well, he was released on an ankle monitor, and then he cut it off. And when you cut that off, you all of a sudden become what they call a risk of flight. There's two things the court uses to determine whether or not to either impose detention or high bail. And one is risk of flight, and the other is harm to the public. And when you've got a murder case, your conditions are going to be extremely high. Just because of the danger factor. But then you also have, when somebody cuts their ankle monitor off, you've got a situation where they're at risk of flight. They're demonstrating in the risk. And in this case, he did. He fled. And so that's why he's being held without bail. The fact that he's a juvenile doesn't matter. And in some cases, even juveniles don't get the option of bail. But he's being held as an adult. So he'd be entitled to bail, but the bail, in this case, they initially set what they were, reasonable conditions of release and put him on the ankle monitor. Well, now the fact that he cut and run and then made a song about it and put it online. This wouldn't be something I would tell a client to do, and it only does a disservice to the system and to himself, because now, if you run, why'd you run? It's what they call consciousness of guilt. So in this case, Tay K was charged initially in Texas. He cut off his ankle monitor and fled. He fled to New Jersey. And when he fled to New Jersey, that's when he put things online and did his song. And when he did that, he violated the conditions of his release. So the Texas authorities would ask for a warrant. And then they would go to the governor of Texas and ask for an extradition warrant. So that warrant goes out nationwide. If he's ever picked up, which he was in New Jersey, then they have a hearing where they determine whether or not they're going to honor the extradition warrant out of Texas. And two things can happen. You can either waive extradition or you can have an extradition hearing. And generally speaking, unless you can absolutely prove that the person in the warrant isn't you, which didn't happen in this case, generally speaking, it's a futile effort to fight extradition. Well, let's take a look at the video that we've been talking about and see what problems we can see, how this would affect Tay K going forward.
I was trying to beat a case, but I ain't beat that case, bitch, I did the race. Beat it up, where I nut shorty face. Eli blast, cracking foes like a vase.
Well, to start off with, we see that he is got a wanted poster, his own wanted poster, at the top of his video, okay? Now, if I'm a judge, and we have to, as a criminal defense lawyer, you have to think about what the judge is going to think. When I see, and I guarantee the judge saw his own wanted poster in that video, that's flaunting authority. In other words, I'm on the run, here's my poster, catch me if you can. Well, I'll tell you something, that just does not help him when you're trying to make a bail argument.
Papa nigga, did I go out my way?
All right. He's talking about popping somebody and then go on his way. As I said in Melly, because he said almost the same, almost identical words in Melly, he's talking about shooting somebody and then going on the run. Those are his own words, and a defendant's own words can be used against him in any proceeding, including a bail hearing and including in your substantive trial. So I'm telling you, I shot the guy and I'm on the run. And if I'm the prosecutor, I would say, well, thank you very much for aiding in your own prosecution. If I'm the defense lawyer, I just wring my hands because there's nothing you can do with that.
To the dash, then I go out the way. Rob a nigga shoes, rob a nigga legs. We tryna
Rob. I mean, he's talking about robbing people. And again, he's inculpating himself. In other words, he's saying he's done this and done that. And it doesn't sound like art. You know, I mean, you can tell it's a song and everything, but it doesn't sound like art because the context in which this is made is he's on the run. And he's on the run for this case. And in the song, he's talking about this case. So it doesn't sound like he's just waxing philosophic.
100 bands in our face. Him gon' be eating good noodles every day. Bitch, I'm drawing doodles, take a pet away. Chopper tell your duties, it's a fish fillet. I woke up.
A fish fillet. He's talking about chopping up people and making them into a fish fillet. Again, another reference to violent crime. Something, you don't want your client to be on social media like this. You don't want your client to give the prosecution all they need to basically convict you. I can't tell you how many times I've had young defendants, whether they're rappers or otherwise, who all of a sudden they're identified on social media by holding up bans and firearms, especially when they're prohibited from having firearms.
Moody, who gon' die today? Shoot a fuckboy in his motherfucking face. We could.
Again, in his fucking face. I just can't tell you how idiotic it is for this kid to get up there and say this. It's just more self-snitching.
Oh, but you don't wanna go that way. Gotta go that way, you get robbed for your record. Gotta go that way, boy, you not gonna be happy. I tell 50s I'm a shooter like young Pepe.
I'm a shooter.
Try to Robbie make her dance, Michael Jackson. We was plotting, y'all was trying to get the packing. Get the packing, you get robbed for a fraction. I'm the Tay K, I don't think you want no action. You want action?
Here's the thing. If you look at the video, there's all kinds of people around, and it's probably a very low production value, whatever. It's organic. It looks, kind of neat, and there's all kinds of people around. But the sad thing about it is that this kid was on the hook for a murder case, and all these people around him are glorifying it in a sense. But they all went home, and now he is stuck in an adult facility, awaiting what could be a life sentence. So the gravity of it is being also flaunted by this guy. And when you go to trial and the prosecutor gets up and he talks about somebody who died, and then they play this video about he flaunts the death, that has a powerful impact on a jury.
Get turned into passes. Your boy's deep, well, let's get to subtracting. Smith and Wesson made my night with some compassion. Fuck a beat.
All the guns, all the drugs, it shows that he's got access to weapons, obviously. It shows that he flaunts his, the authority, flaunts violence in the face of authority, especially while he's got this case pending. One of the things you tell your client, number one, if they call you before the police talk to them, you tell them don't talk to the police. And don't talk to anybody else. You don't want any statements out there. This is exactly what you don't want your client to do.
I was trying to beat a case, but I ain't beat that case, bitch.
I was trying to beat the case, but I ain't beat the case.
The race. I'm gonna shoot, bitch, without a debate. I'm gonna shoot, you can see it in my face.
I mean, it's almost like he acts out the crime throughout the video. And it's like, and he's got a gun in his hand throughout the entire video, which I guarantee you is another violation of his conditions of release.
Fuck a beat, I was trying to beat a case, but I ain't beat that case, bitch, I did the race.
I didn't beat the case, I did the race. What he's basically saying there is he didn't beat it yet, and he went on the run. And when you go on the run, they can use that as what they call a consciousness of guilt. And I guarantee you, when he does wind up going to trial, that's exactly what the prosecution will use it as.
See it in my motherfucking face.
Then he takes off in a Corvette. And I guarantee you, that's likely the last time he'll be in a Corvette. If I was his lawyer, which I'm not, and I'm not soliciting him for the case by any means, but this is, social media that we're on, and so we're talking about, well, what would be the best thing for his lawyer to tell him at this point? Well, we try to play up that he panicked, that he's a young kid, and that everything in this video was part of art, and you could say that he was commenting on society in general and not necessarily about this case. You'd have to make some kind of argument like that. And then you'd have to tell him to not talk to anybody in jail, because I guarantee you that's what he's doing. He's hopefully isolated from other defendants in jail. But what the prosecution will do, and you have to think like a prosecutor, but and I don't know what the strengths or weaknesses of his case are, because I don't know. I haven't read any reports, and I don't know. I just know what I've seen online, and I've seen what the video is. But I would, the prosecution and all, and it will try to get snitches in jail to have him, confirm, the video. So when you're sitting in jail awaiting a long, delay, because in this COVID era there's no trials going on, so you're sitting for a long time. Other defendants that are sitting in jail will try to snitch, and so they'll be your buddy. You go to lunch and they read your paperwork if you left your paperwork in your cell, And then all of a sudden they know everything about your case. Then they call their lawyer, and then they call the prosecutor and say, hey, he told me this, he told me that. And before you know it, not only have you snitched on yourself, but your inmates have also snitched. So the best thing, and I've said this from the beginning, the best thing any defendant can do, at least at the outset, is just keep your mouth shut. Thank you for watching. We'll have more of this type of analysis and some more in-depth analysis. I'd like you to go ahead and like and follow. We're also on Instagram, Bruce Rivers, and Facebook, Rivers Law Office. So hope to see you soon. Sign up and see you at the next one.